In the first 2 years of President Enrique Peña Nieto's administration, Mexico has achieved a series of deep structural changes, detonating its potential economic growth as well as its citizens' welfare. One of these important efforts is the telecommunications reform. It's a very important change in our history because it generates more openness to investment, it promotes competitiveness, and provides, above all, more benefits to the Mexicans by offering more services with better quality and coverage at lower costs. As the President has stated, this important objective cannot be accomplished if its benefits do not reach all the population. This is why Mexico is performing significant investments in a satellite system infrastructure project named the Mexsat. The reform contemplates its role as one of the essential instruments to boost the development of telecommunications in benefit of all Mexicans. This administration knows Mexico needs a solid long-term satellite public policy with modern technologies and strong social orientation. This is precisely what this program is about. In a country as ours, with difficult orographic access and high population dispersion, satellite communications are essential tools for isolated people who live in communities where telecommunication infrastructure is not available. We need to count on voice, data, and video communication services to grant them the same opportunities than those who live in areas with more access to these technologies. The new Mexsat system is the materialization of this policy. It is a fleet composed by 3 satellites, 2 for mobile services and 1 for fixed services, that will provide communication services to remote communities with difficult access, reducing the digital divide. Moreover, it increases national security institutions' communication capacity, optimizing the performance of their duties. At the beginning of this administration, the Mexican government launched the Centenario satellite, first of the 3 that compose the new fleet. Now, it's time to launch the Centenario satellite. By the end of this year, we will be launching the 3rd one, the Morelos 3 satellite. I would like to thank all the people and institutions that directly or indirectly have contributed to accomplish this meaningful project. Also, I want to make a special distinction to Boeing Enterprise, producer of this satellite system, and to ILS, our launching services provider. During this process, the Ministry of Communication and Transportation, as leader of the project, has been directly involved in the development and implementation of this important satellite system. Therefore, a great number of Mexican engineers have been trained with the highest industrial standards to operate and control this satellite fleet in our country's facilities. Mexico now has the necessary tools to grant broadband access services in remote areas of its territory, to improve communications for national security institutions, and to act more efficiently in case of disasters. The Centenario satellite that we launched today is an essential element for these important tasks. These are very good news because with the implementation of advanced technologies, the Mexican satellite system steps forward to achieve the goals and objectives of the telecommunications reform. Thank you very much.
Anyway, hey guys, Ben25 here, watching launch of Mexsat-1.
That's the Proton launch vehicle awaiting liftoff from Launch Pad 39 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, with the Centenario satellite on board. The most recent weather readings we've received from the mission team at T-minus 6 hours were cloudy skies, liftoff temperature range from 64 to 68 Fahrenheit, 18 to 20 Celsius, ground winds northwest 6 to 9 meters per second, upper level winds within limits at all altitudes. These conditions are within the Proton mission design limits for launch. This launch is a collaborative effort between International Launch Services, Khrushchev State Research and Production Space Center, SCT, the Secretary of Communications and Transportation of Mexico, and satellite manufacturer Boeing Satellite Systems International. Liftoff is scheduled for May 15th at 10:47 p.m. at Boeing in California, and May 16th at 12:47 a.m. at SCT in Mexico City, 1:47 a.m. here at Washington, D.C. at the ILS Broadcast Center, and 11:47 a.m. in Baikonur. Thank you for joining us as we begin our countdown to the launch of Centenario. Hello and welcome to today's coverage of the launch of Centenario. I'm Karen Monahan, Director of Communications at ILS. With me is my co-host Russ Prytula, Program Director at ILS, and Russ has worked on 17 launch campaigns from Baikonur. This is his 14th launch broadcast for ILS. Russ, welcome back to the Broadcast Center.
Thanks, Karen. Great to join you for this special event. Just a few details about today's launch. This will be the 404th Proton launch and the 89th ILS Proton launch overall. This is the second Proton launch for 2015. The global satellite operator for today's launch of Centenario is SCT, headquartered in Mexico City, Mexico. This is the first SCT mission on an ILS Proton. The satellite manufacturer is Boeing Satellite Systems International in El Segundo, California. This will be the 18th Boeing manufactured satellite launched on an ILS Proton. The ILS Proton mission designed for the Centenario satellite will utilize a 5-burn mission of the BRIES-M upper stage and take 9 hours and 13 minutes from liftoff to satellite separation to insert the satellite into the planned geosynchronous transfer orbit. Let's take a look at the Centenario mission profile. The following is the description of the geosynchronous transfer orbit, or GTO, mission flight profile of the ILS Proton launch vehicle with the Centenario communications satellite on board. The first 3 stages of the Proton function to propel the orbital unit to a suborbital trajectory. The orbital unit consists of the BRIES-M payload adapter system and the Centenario satellite. The sequence starts with the ignition of the powerful first stage engines that output 2.4 million pounds of thrust at sea level. As the ILS Proton lifts off from its launch pad, it immediately executes a roll maneuver to align its flight launch azimuth to 61.3 degrees in order to achieve a parking orbit inclination of 51.5 degrees. As it travels in an east-northeast direction across Kazakhstan towards the Pacific Ocean. During the first stage flight, the ILS Proton experiences maximum dynamic pressure. The first stage engines burn for just under 2 minutes. Then the first stage separation from the second stage occurs. The second stage engines ignite with nearly 540,000 pounds of thrust and burn for 3.5 minutes. After staging, the third stage engine ignites and burns with 131,000 pounds of thrust for a little more than 4 minutes. The payload fairing is jettisoned high above Earth's dense atmosphere soon after third stage ignition. At stage 3 separation, the orbital unit has traveled from Baikonur to Russia near the eastern edge of Kazakhstan at 51.5 degrees north latitude and is moving about 7,300 meters per second or 4.5 miles per second relative velocity. The upper stage of the ILS Proton rocket is called the BRIES-M and is designed to inject payloads into a wide variety of target orbits. There are 5 BRIES-M burns in this GTO mission design. The first BRIES-M burn occurs about 2 minutes. This will last long enough 3 kilometers. This 4.5-minute burn spans from Siberia to Russia's east coast. About 1 orbital revolution later, The second BRIES-M burn for the Centenario mission occurs about 51 minutes after the first burn main engine cutoff, or MECO. The resulting elliptical orbit is called the intermediate orbit and increases the apogee to 5,000 kilometers, the perigee to 270 kilometers, and decreases the inclination to 50.3 degrees. This 17.8-minute burn spans from the South Atlantic 800 miles east of Rio de Janeiro to Libya in North Africa. 2 hours, 3 minutes after the second burn, the third BRIES-M burn starts. Soon after this burn completes, the depleted auxiliary propellant tank, or APT, is jettisoned, and the fourth BRIES-M burn begins. The resulting orbit is called the transfer orbit, where the apogee is greatly increased to 35,800 kilometers, closely matching the geosynchronous altitude, making the orbit more elliptical and maintaining the equatorial plane perigee location. Both burns add up to approximately 17.5 minutes and span from South Pacific 200 miles west of Santiago, Chile, to 300 miles west of Morocco. During the coast phases between main engine burns, the BRIES-M performs various attitude maneuvers in order for the Centenario spacecraft to be exposed to the sun at predetermined solar illumination angles, which is designed to satisfy its thermal and power requirements. About 5 hours later, during the fifth and final BRIES-M burn, the orbital unit will perform a large plane change maneuver from 49.1 degrees to 20.1 degrees inclination, slightly decreasing its apogee to 35,786 kilometers, while increasing its perigee to 8,985 kilometers in a 7-minute, 54-second burn. The fifth BRIES-M burn and spacecraft separation occur high above the Indian Ocean. About 13.5 minutes after MECO, the Centenario satellite is separated from the BRIES-M into its targeted orbit. The total mission time from launch to Centenario spacecraft separation is approximately 9 hours and 13 minutes.
The Mexsat-1 satellite is called Centenario in honor of the 100th anniversary of the Mexican Revolution. The Mexsat system will consist of 3 satellites, 2 ground sites, and associated network operations. It is Mexico's next-generation satellite communications system.
The first burn of the BRIES-M upper stage is scheduled for completion about 16 minutes into the flight, and our live coverage will conclude after that burn since the rocket will be out of range of our tracking stations as planned. You can stay up to date on the key mission milestones by visiting the ILS website, ilslaunch.com, by following us on Twitter, and by liking us on Facebook. In addition to launching communication satellites, Proton has launched Russian interplanetary missions to the Moon, Venus, Mars, and Halley's Comet. Proton has also launched a Salyut space station, the Mir core segment, as well as modules for today's International Space Station. The Proton rocket's first stage engine produces a powerful 2.4 million pounds of thrust at sea level. Let's take a moment to learn more about the development of Proton. The Proton is a heritage launch vehicle with a long and significant history in space. Here are some quick facts. The Proton is the largest and most powerful Russian launch vehicle in operation. Proton has launched more than 400 times since the mid-1960s. Khrushchev State Research and Production Space Center, the majority owner of ILS, is one of the pillars of the global aerospace industry and manufactures both the Proton rocket and the BRIES-M upper stage. While the first Proton mission was in July of 1965, the first commercial ILS Proton launch took over 30 years later, in April of 1996, with the Astro-1F satellite for SES. The UR-500 vehicle's first 3 payloads were spacecraft called Proton-1, 2, and 3, and subsequently the launcher was named after its original payload. Khrushchev manages federal launch missions, while ILS offers the Proton for commercial satellite launches. Along with the mission team, we'd like to acknowledge the VIPs at the launch site in Hermosillo, Mexico, at one of SET's ground stations where they'll be viewing the live broadcast. With representatives from ILS and Boeing are the Minister of Transportation and Communication for Mexico, Mr. Gerardo Ruiz, and the Governor of the State of Sonora, Guillermo Padres. In Baikonur, we're honored to host the Mexican Ambassador, Mr. Ruben Alberto Beltran Guerrero, and the Director General of SET, Mr. Omar Carvin, and the Director of Telecommunications of Mexico, Jorge Alberto Jardini Rumayal, and several others. Another special guest on hand in Baikonur is Mr. Jose Marino Hernandez, a former NASA astronaut and consultant to SET, a crew member of the STS-128 Discovery Shuttle in 2009, NASA's 128th shuttle mission, and the 30th mission to the International Space Station. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for here at the Live Broadcast Center, and in Mexico, in El Segundo, California, and in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. Russ will take us through the final pre-launch preparations and through liftoff of the ILS Proton with the Centenario satellite. Russ?
Preparation for today's mission started about 3 years ago with the building of the satellite and the mission integration and planning for launch on this ILS Proton. Mission teams are in their places in the launch bunker, control rooms, ground stations, and communication centers around the world. The final go for launch polling we mentioned earlier is being completed. In addition to those at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, there are many others watching who have played an important role in the Centenario mission. And we'd like to say thanks for all your hard work in getting to this moment. SET and all of their employees, the employees of Boeing Satellite Systems International, Khrushchev staff in Moscow and other regions of Russia, ILS headquarters in Reston, Virginia, and many others who have helped make today's launch Centenario a reality. We've got about 50 seconds before launch. You're looking at a live picture of the rocket on pad 39. This is a daytime launch in Baikonur, about midday. So we'll have a good view off the pad, but as you can see, we have cloud cover. So that will put a damper on our ability to view down. About 27 seconds before launch. And 20 seconds before launch, just a few seconds away, we'll get the final seconds countdown in Russian to liftoff. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have ignition. We have liftoff of an ILS Proton from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, with the Centenario satellite on board. About 10 seconds after liftoff, the vehicle does a roll maneuver to alter the orientation of the vertically launched Proton towards the northeasterly flight plan, and will soon experience max Q, which is the maximum dynamic pressure, when the aerodynamic stress in the vehicle in atmospheric flight is maximized. The Proton max Q occurs about 1 minute and 2 seconds after liftoff and at a velocity of Mach 1.6. We're now 40 seconds into the flight. As you can see, we don't have much of a live view at this point due to the cloud cover. You're looking at an animation. And we're coming up just on the minute mark, so it's going to be going through max Q. Everything seems to be proceeding nominally as the vehicle ascends over the Cosmodrome in a northeasterly direction, with a flight launch azimuth of approximately 61.3 degrees. One minute and 20 seconds into the flight. Reports from the Cosmodrome have everything nominal at this point. One minute, 45 seconds. We are coming up on the first stage's separation from the second stage that is set to occur at 2 minutes into the flight. And you can see the animation of the event as we cross the 2 minute mark. Standing by for the actual confirmation from our telemetry lab in Baikonur. Still standing by for confirmation from Baikonur that the staging event has occurred at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Coming up on 3 minutes into the flight.
Okay, thank you for the updates for us. Now, here are some beautiful images of Centenario in production and testing at Boeing. So, Russ, do you have any updates for us right now?
Well, we've got a little bit of a delay in our updates from Baikonur, but we are getting indications everything is nominal. We're at 7 minutes in the flight, so we should be confirming that we have a good stage 1-2 separation earlier in the flight, as well as the separation of the second stage from the third stage.
Okay, thanks, Russ. The launch site for Proton missions is the Baikonur Cosmodrome, which is rich in space history. Let's take a closer look at the launch facility. The Baikonur Cosmodrome is the world's first and largest operational space launch facility and has been in operation since 1955. It's located in the desert steppe of Kazakhstan, approximately 2,100 kilometers or 1,300 miles southeast of Moscow. The Cosmodrome is a large complex that extends about 100 miles from east to west and 55 miles north to south, which is about the size of Holland. Under Roscosmos, the Russian Federal Space Agency, Baikonur remains a busy spaceport with numerous commercial, military, and scientific missions being launched annually. The Baikonur Cosmodrome is under a long-term lease from the Republic of Kazakhstan. Today's ILS Proton will launch from Pad 39 in Area 200, one of the 3 launch pads available for Proton launch use. Okay, thanks for the mission updates, Russ, so far, as far as what you've gotten. The Centenario mission team is composed of representatives from ILS, SCT, Krunichev, and Boeing. The next 2 greetings from Baikonur are from Omar Harpin, head of Centenario program, and Mauricio Avila, chief technical officer for Centenario program, both of SCT.
Good afternoon from Launchpad 39 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. My name is Omar Charfen, and I am head of the Mexsat program at the Ministry of Communications and Transports from Mexico. The Mexsat satellite is an important part of the telecommunications reform. It is part of our government's efforts to provide satellite infrastructure throughout the country for the benefit of the Mexican people. This is the second launch of the Mexsat satellite system, and it represents a huge milestone for Mexico's telecommunications history. A Centenario satellite with its state-of-the-art technology will provide unprecedented satellite services to remote areas and will offer a robust platform for national security agencies. I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone that has participated in this program at SCT and at Telecom. Also, my special thanks to Boeing as our satellite manufacturer and to ILS, our launch services provider. I wish for the successful beginning of operations of this new generation of satellite services for Mexico.
Dobre viche, buenas noches, good evening. Greetings from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. I am Mauricio Avila, the Chief Technical Officer of the Mexsat program. As you all know, this historic place has many firsts. The first satellite launched into space, the first human being, the first woman, and many more. This is no different for the Mexsat system. The Centenario satellite is the first government-owned launch in the Proton rocket. Also, the Centenario satellite is the first in which the L-band is the main payload in Mexico. This is why in Telecom we were delighted and honored when SCT entrusted us this program. This is why I want to thank the Telecom team, particularly the technical one from engineering, technicians, and administrative that helped us get to this moment. Finally, I want to thank Boeing, ILS, Krunichev, and Roscosmos for their dedicated work and technical skills that help us to get to this launch. Thank you very much. Buenas noches.
And now a translated greeting from Pavel Pesegov, Krunichev Program Director for the Centenario launch.
Hello all. My name is Pavel Pesegov, and I am a Program Director for Krunichev. 3 years ago, when we started this program, we entered the waters of the river, which brought us here to Baikonur. In the course of our work, we got acquainted with a lot of colleagues, engineers, and met a lot of old friends as well. We are very proud that we are taking part in creating this spacecraft constellation for the United States of Mexico. We know that this project is very important for the Mexican government. On behalf of my colleagues and from myself, I would like to express deep thanks to all the participants of this campaign and to wish us all the best of luck.
Representing satellite manufacturer Boeing is Mexsat Program Manager Steve Silvestri.
Hello, I'm Steve Silvestri from Boeing, and I'm the Program Manager for the Mexsat Space segment. Greetings from Baikonur. This is my first launch campaign in Baikonur, and it's been a great experience. We had some challenges early in this campaign, but we were able to work through those challenges as a team, and I think we're a stronger team now as a result of that experience. I'd like to say thank you to our customer SCT and to Telecom. We've enjoyed a close partnership over the course of this major project, which includes 2 state-of-the-art geomobile satellites and 2 new ground stations in Mexico. This is a major project for SCT and for the people of Mexico. I'd also like to say thank you to a highly talented and dedicated team back at Boeing who've worked on this program for 4.5 years. And lastly, I'd like to say thank you to our hosts, ILS and Krunichev, for your hospitality during our stay.
So Russ, do you have any updates at this time for us?
Well, a little bit of an unusual situation here. We are getting indications that everything is nominal and has occurred right on through the ignition of the first BRIES-M burn. We're just not getting all the telemetry information that positively confirms the events, but based on everything they've got from tracking the vehicle, we do have indications that we are on a nominal trace, and we're just waiting to catch up with some of the telemetry confirmation. So we're now at 13 and a half minutes into the flight. Okay.
One of our colleagues, Judy program integrator for ILS, is currently in Baikonur as an integral part of the Centenario mission team. While her duties are extensive leading up to the launch day, she's also the communication link between Baikonur and us here at the ILS Broadcast Center. Judy joined us in 2008 and has served on multiple launch campaigns. We greatly appreciate all of Judy's efforts and thank her for the regular mission updates during the broadcast. All Proton rockets are manufactured at Krunichev in Moscow and then transported to Baikonur via railcar. Here's a brief look at some of the engineering behind the Proton launch vehicle. The total height of an ILS Proton is between 184 and 191 feet, around the same height as a 19-story building. Its gross liftoff weight can be around 705,000 kilograms, or 1,554,000 pounds, depending on payload and fuel weights. Proton's initial launch was on July 16, 1965, via the Proton-M spacecraft. If we begin our in-depth look at the Proton in a manner chronologically consistent with the launch phases, we see that the first stage consists of a central tank containing the oxidizer tank, surrounded by 6 outboard fuel tanks. Each fuel tank also carries one of the 6 RD-276 engines that provide first stage power. Total first stage vacuum-rated level thrust is 11 meganewtons, or 2,500,000 pounds of force. The second stage is a conventional cylindrical design and is powered by 3 RD-210 engines plus 1 RD-211 engine. It develops a vacuum thrust of 2.4 meganewtons, or 540,000 pounds of force. The third stage is powered by 1 RD-213 engine and develops thrust of 583 kilonewtons, or 131,000 pounds of force. It has a 4-nozzle vernier engine that produces thrust of 31 kilonewtons, or 7,000 pounds of force. Guidance, navigation, and control of the Proton-M during operation of the first 3 stages is carried out by a triple redundant closed-loop digital avionics system mounted on the Proton's third stage. The BRIES-M upper stage is powered by 1 pump-fed gimbaled main engine that develops thrust of 20 kilonewtons, or 4,500 pounds of force. It is composed of a central core and an auxiliary propellant tank, which is jettisoned in flight following depletion. The BRIES-M control system includes an onboard computer, a 3-axis gyro-stabilized platform, and a navigation system. Finally, the payload fairing. It consists of 2 symmetrical payload fairing halves and a static envelope diameter up to 3.87 meters. There are multiple payload fairing designs presently qualified for flight, including standard commercial payload fairings developed specifically to meet the needs of ILS customers. The payload fairing for commercial launches on board an ILS Proton separates at the nose cone in a planned maneuver, leaving the BRIES-M and the spacecraft together, known as the orbital unit, to continue the journey to its planned orbit. And that is an at-a-glance look at the Proton and its stages. So now let's take a chronological look at Centenario's journey to launch.
Commercial satellites that launch aboard the ILS Proton take approximately 2 years to manufacture, test, and ship to the launch site in Baikonur. The launch campaign begins with the arrivals of the spacecraft and crew in Baikonur. At Yubileyny Airfield, Centenario arrives aboard a massive Antonov cargo jet. The spacecraft is then carefully offloaded to a rail car from the cargo bay of the Antonov. The spacecraft then makes the 6-hour rail trip to the launch processing facility. The rail cars that transport spacecraft are thermally controlled to maintain proper environmental conditions for the spacecraft. In the high bay, system tests and other operations, including fueling the spacecraft, are performed by the crew. Joint operations now begin to bring all the flight hardware together. In Hall 101, the satellite becomes mated to the BRIES-M upper stage, and then rotated horizontally to be encapsulated in the payload fairing. Each mating activity is accompanied by joint testing to verify everything is functioning properly. The spacecraft, fairing, and upper stage are referred to as the ascent unit from this point forward. In Hall 111, the booster stages are mated to form the entire assembly of the ILS Proton Integrated Launch Vehicle. The integrated launch vehicle rolls to the BRIES-M fueling station, where fueling of the BRIES-M is completed. The complete rocket rolls out to the launch pad. Here, hydraulic erectors move the rocket from a horizontal to a vertical position. Then, the mobile service tower moves in to provide services and accessibility to the launch vehicle and spacecraft. The precise time the vehicle for Yuri Gagarin rolled out in 1961, 6:30 a.m., is when each Proton is rolled out to the launch pad, marking this landmark anniversary in space achievement.
So Russ, is there anything that you can tell us right now with the mission?
Well, as I said before, we're definitely experiencing a telemetry problem with getting data, but by other indications in terms of tracking and NORAD data, it appears that everything has progressed as it should be. We're at 20 minutes, just hit the 20-minute mark into the flight, which means we're now in the blackout period where we don't currently have range visibility. But we'll certainly be catching up with this data as it becomes available later. But again, all indications are, with the available information, that things are proceeding nominally.
Okay, great. Thanks, Russ. Remember, you can keep current on the Centenario mission by visiting the ILS website, which is ilslaunch.com, by following us on Twitter, or by liking us on Facebook. Also, at ilslaunch.com, you can check out pictures of the past missions, read blog posts from the ILS mission team, and view past liftoff highlights and full broadcasts. I'd like to thank Russ Prytula for co-hosting the broadcast with me today. Thanks very much, Russ.
Thanks, Karen. It's been great being back here in the ILS Broadcast Center for the launch of Centenario.
So this concludes our live coverage of the ILS Proton launch of the Centenario satellite. On behalf of the ILS team and all of our partners and customers worldwide, thank you for watching.